Two Premiership pies make their return into the team. Let's talk about it. Before we jump into our team talk, be sure to have your notifications on. If you are subscribed to my channel, be sure to have your notifications on so whenever I post a video, you'll be the first notified about it. So I can see a certain number of people have subscribed but don't have their notifications on. So turn on that bell. It'll go a long way in supporting the channel. Also, merch is still available, which is another way, a really good way to support the channel. T-shirts, hats, hoodies. But two Premiership pies return. Now let's talk about it. In what will be a huge game, I'm expecting 85,000. I know it's a Bulldogs or Footscray home game, but it's at the MCG. Collingwood fans are going to get there in droves. It's Footscray's 100th birthday celebration, so it's going to go off. You know, they're presenting their cups and all that sort of stuff. So I'm expecting at least 85,000, but we are there to ruin their celebrations. Now, whenever we have birthday celebrations, we tend to play Carlton and we just get done all the time. I don't think a birthday celebration is a good omen for anyone. So I'm hoping that we go there and spoil their celebration, spoil their birthday, Bulldog face into a little bit of cake. With the teams, we'll quickly touch on the Bulldogs before going into Collingwood's team. So the Bulldogs bring in Buku Kamas, fullback or just the defender. And they bring in Oscar Baker. Now, Baker played for Melbourne, is an outside, played for Melbourne, now plays for the Doggies, obviously. He's an outside mid. First game of the year, was out of favour last year. I don't know really what he brings to this team, but Buku, especially with our forward line, they're bringing in that speed, that intercept marking. So that's why Buku's there. And, you know, there was a time where the Pies were looking at Buku to recruit him. Then he re-signed with the Doggies. So that's going to be really interesting. It'll be Buku, Lob, Dale, Freya in that back line. It's going to be interesting to see how they stack up. This is where the game will be won and lost. We talked about that in our preview of the game. Now, moving on over to the Pies. We knew Jordan De Goey was playing. We sort of came to the conclusion that it would be Sullivan that was out. But what we didn't see happening was no Brody Myercheck. Now, Brody Myercheck is out with general soreness. So what that sort of means is, like, because we've got the bye coming up next week, they're just going to give him, you know, an extra week's rest. Body's getting battered and bruised. Hopefully, it's just general soreness. Who knows? Like, that could mean absolutely anything. But hopefully, we see him bounce back against Carlton in 2 weeks' time. That will be the next game that we play before after the bye. So coming in for Checkers is Mason Cox. Now, that's an interesting one. If you saw my VFL practice game footage and my commentary on that, I think Mason Cox, and even in training on Tuesday, didn't really show me enough for him to get picked, right? But he just, I don't know, he went missing at training, went missing in the VFL, and that's really hard because he's 212 centimeters. Yeah, 212 centimeters or something like that. So it's hard for him to go missing, but he did go missing for me personally. So it's going to be interesting to see how we line up. I assume they sort of bring in Cox because they want McStay to stay more of a forward now that Checkers isn't out. And because but the Bulldogs will be running with English and Darcy as their tandem rucks. You know, Darcy is super tall, right? So they'll be running with, so we'll be running with Mason Cox and Darcy Cameron as our tandem rucks, and then let Coxie into that forward line. I know we have a good win rate with Mason Cox, so that's going to be, that kind of works in our favour, but I just need to see him produce one of his really good games, not the games that he sort of goes missing in or he keeps dropping marks in and stuff like that. It might be a little bit wet as well, so we're still going pretty tall in the wet or in, you know, weird sort of conditions. So that's going to be interesting, but I think Checkers out is huge for us. Checkers sets up a lot of our plays. Like I was saying in my preview, he can sort of push up the ground and then punch in those balls to McStay, to Membry. So now, instead of the triple M's, I guess it's still technically triple M's because it's Mason, Membry, and McStay. So it's going to be interesting to see how they work in tandem, because in training, I haven't really seen them work in tandem, mainly because Mason Cox has been injured the last couple of weeks, doing a lot of ruck work. So it's going to be, it's going to be really interesting to see how they work that out. Now with the sub, I theorised that Jordan De Goey might play half a game or might get subbed out later. I said maybe he starts, kind of like Pendles, he starts on the bench as a sub, then they bring him on. But looking at our interchange, it's Lipinski, Maynard, Schultz, Ned Long, and Mason Cox. So one of those guys will be the sub. I can't see it being Mason Cox. There's no point it being Braden Maynard. It could be Lipinski. It could be Ned Long. I don't think the sub is a Lockie Schultz special. But in saying that, Ned Long had such a good game last week. I think putting him as a sub would be a bit perplexing, really, because I'd rather him have an impact as a full gamer than an impact in the third and fourth quarter where the game could almost be done, right? And he's not a big impact player. He's not one of those guys that'll come on and get 15 disposals and all these clearances and stuff. What Ned Long does is he helps out Nick Dacos in the middle. He helps out Pendles. He helps out Chris Perriman, all these guys. So I wouldn't even put him as a sub. Now you're looking at Lipinski or Schultz. It's going to be a wet day. Maybe we have Lockie Schultz as the sub. And that way, if we need to take a big man off, be it Membry or Mason Cox or McStay or whatever it may be, you had that speed and that aggressiveness of Lockie Schultz. And because when he comes on, he's going to be like a rabid dog. So when he comes on, you let that leash go, he's going to just attack that ball super, super hard. So that's who I would have as my sub. I'd have Lockie Schultz starting as a sub. And if the tools are working out, then I would take off De Goey, give him 65% of game time. But again, it's just interesting that they went with a Mason Cox in that squad with Checkers coming out. But look, that is what our team lineup looks like. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you like the inclusion of Mason Cox and obviously you're gonna like the inclusion of Jordan De Goey, but do you like the inclusion of Mason Cox over Brody Mychek? Maybe we should have debuted Charlie West. Like, how awesome would that have been if we had debuted Charlie West in a game like this? But let me know your thoughts down below. And until next time, like, comment, subscribe, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your pets. And until next time, Double Shackers, I'll see you later.